Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Ivil Say Orway Update. So I'm doing a rogue video because it's 6:15 in the morning. I just got up. I slept in. I usually get up at 5. Today is the 7th of January, 2021, the day after the events at the Capitol building and the certification of Biden as president. I'm disgusted. I've been disgusted by the mainstream media, and now I am as disgusted with Fox as I ever was with CNN. Fox is also now an enemy of the people. I listened to Tucker Carlson last night and his take on all of this. Of course, just so you know, they condemned our people and their peaceful protest. See, Antifa can burn down cities. Black Lives Matter can set things on fire and loot buildings. People to the approaching triple-digit deaths can be caused from a year of protests that are so violent that nothing like it has ever happened in the history of the United States of America. Not even close. The LA riots were just in LA. This stuff of last summer happened in every city. And they all went to war against our country and burned our cities down and, caused all of this mayhem and chaos for an entire year. During a pandemic lockdown, by the way. So I won't even get into that. And those guys were mostly peaceful protests. It was a mostly peaceful protest. 500,000 people descend on Washington, D.C. A handful of them penetrate the Capitol building. They don't set anything on fire. They only break one window. As far as I can tell, all they did once they got in there was take pictures of them standing next to all of the beautiful artwork and paintings that show the history of our country. And all they did by way of destruction was mess up the papers in Nancy Pelosi's office. Okay? And you would have think that they had made an attempt on Biden himself. You would have think that they could come in there as an armed militia ready to overthrow the government or something. You'd think it was the end of the world. These people are all evil. How dare you? All our Republicans who were fighting for us just threw us all under the bus because a handful of people got into the Capitol building. A place, I might add, is called the People's House. That building they penetrated in is our house. It's our people's house. So they went in. No one got hurt, except, they scuffled with the Capitol Police, and eventually a Capitol policeman shot a woman, shot an unarmed woman. Now, a convicted criminal, a man who was engaged in a crime, was murdered. I'll put it that way. I'll give you that. Or he OD'd, down in Minneapolis. Guy named George Floyd. One man's death caused millions and millions of dollars worth of damage to corporations, private buildings, churches, homes. People's houses were burned. People's businesses were burned. And that was all over George Floyd. They won't even tell us the name of the girl that got shot at the Capitol building by the Capitol Police who was unarmed. He just shot her right in the neck. She dropped dead like a rock. And, unarmed and a female. And, they didn't even mention her. I still don't know her name. We've got, honestly, in this one female, we have our Breonna Taylor. We have our George Floyd in this situation, as far as I'm concerned. And these people in the press and these... what I hate about these politicians is they all linked arms. All the Republicans and Democrats, they all bonded over this up there. It really is us against them. It was my black pill moment. I'm not black pilled against the Republican Party as much as I'm just black pilled against anybody who has anything to do with the swamp. But I tell you what, there's one person in Washington, D.C. today that I trust. And that's that little 5'0" 100-pound... what's she call herself? 5'0" and 100-pound pistol-packing girl from Eastern Colorado, from Rifle, Colorado. She's the only person in Washington, D.C. that I trust right now. You know, that one-eyed backstabber, I don't trust him. You know, he's supposed to be on our side. And, you know, Ted Cruz stood up and objected, but really he said, I'm not objecting to the election. I'm just saying we should investigate. You know, none of these people got any backbone. They're all on the same page. And I don't know that we're going to get to another election, but if we do, I am going to work tirelessly and endlessly and transform this channel into a political channel that does nothing more than to primary every Republican in the Republican Party and replace him with a Trumpster. We shouldn't start a new party. We should just take over the Republican Party. Trump did it. He showed the way, and this is what we need to do. So now suddenly we've all committed treason, apparently, because some people went into the people's house. Some people went into the people's house, right? And now we're all terrorists. All Trump supporters are terrorists, and our cause we were working on doesn't matter to them. You know, they called the National Guard from 3 states over people wanting to go into the people's house. These weren't armed people. These were just angry constituents. And instead of doing what real men and real upstanding citizens would have done in the old days and come out to the crowd, why did Ted Cruz meet them? Why didn't he come and stand in the aisle and go, look, guys, okay, I hear that you're angry, and turn it into a political soapbox moment? It would have been so easy to do. Old Sage Wanderer could have done it in a heartbeat, and you know it's true. If I was in that room, I would have turned around to that mob and went, hey, and you know, that's another thing. They're a mob. Our protesters are a mob. They're violent, club-wielding, stick-wielding, Molotov cocktail throwing, police-burning mob is peaceful protests, and our peaceful protest into the people's house was a mob. We're a mob. Our own Oklahoma senator stood up after this and said, we're not going to bend to the mob. You better bend to the mob, buddy, because guess what? The head of the mob is in Oklahoma. We're the ones pushing this. Oklahoma, Texas, you know, this is the heart of our republic. That's another thing. I'm so sick of hearing about the attack on democracy. The attack on democracy. There's an attack on democracy. We don't have a democracy. This is not a democracy. You will find no reference to a democracy in any of the founding fathers' paperwork because this is a republic. This, the United States of America, is a constitutional republic. Stop calling it a democracy. It's not a democracy. The only people that call it a democracy are Democrats because it has their name in it. Democracy, Democrats. We're Republicans because this is a republic. It's not a freaking democracy. Shut up, you ignorant tart. I'm gripey in the morning. This is why break in my house in the morning, you criminal, and see if I don't just stop it offing you. I'm liable to hang you up and play with you for a minute like a cat and a mouse. I got a B-side. Good morning. I'm not looking for trouble, but guess what? I guess I found some. So we're all seditionist traitors because we poke our head out of the sand and go, hey, it looks like they cheated. Well, how dare we? We must be treasonous for even bringing up such a thing. We did a peaceful protest, and you know what? We would have got away with it, and it would have been fine, okay, except for one trigger-happy Capitol policeman who couldn't hold his water, and he shoots a woman in the neck and kills her. They're saying 4 people died. 3 people died of medical complications, though. So out of 500,000 people, they had 3 people died of heart attacks? Or did they get a little help from the tear gas? You know, did the police kill 1 person, or did they kill 3 in our? Oh my gosh, I'm so beside myself. I feel absolutely alone in the world right now. I reckon half of my channel will turn against me because here's the deal. in the movie Jack Reacher, one of my favorite all-time movies. And it's not because of anything other than the fighting and the choreography in the first Jack Reacher movie was done by a real martial artist. And it, as a martial artist, is a joy to watch. And when I took my kids to see Jack Reacher, they were still pretty small. And they both started yelling in the theater, "Dad, that guy fights just like you. That's what it would be like to fight you. You look just like that. That's exactly what you look like." I used to work out on heavy bags and spar in front of my kids all the time. Well, I taught my son to spar too when he got bigger. No, I taught him to spar when he was itty bitty, if you want to know the truth. I was sparring with him when I was down on my hands and knees. But just to teach him, you know. But yeah, in the Jack Reacher movie, there's the famous scene where he gets taken out by a mob. He gets taken out into the parking lot by a group of guys. Right? There's 4 or 5 of them. And he tells the lead guy. I may get this a little bit that's wrong. I haven't seen the movie in a while. But he tells the lead guy, you know, the head of the little gang. He says, "So I want you to know that this was your idea, and that I gave you every opportunity to leave." And the guy looks at his buddies and goes, "Well, that's pretty big talk when there's 5 of us and just 1 of you." And he goes, and Jack Reacher says, "Well, there's really not 5 of you, you know." And because I've done this before. It's not my first rodeo. The 4th and 5th guy, they're just going to split. As soon as the fighting starts, they're just going to run. And then just me and a couple of your trusted wingmen, okay? But the first thing I'm going to do is walk up and take you out. And when they see their leader leave, it's going to be just me and the 2 trusted wingmen, and one of those guys is going to run. And, you know, your one wingman's going to have to stick by your side by his buddy because he's loyal, you know, and I'll probably have to do some stuff to him. But really, I'm only fighting 2 guys. Once I take you out, I'm only fighting 1 guy, you know. And that's what I'm experiencing with our patriot movement, with our Republicans, okay? What I'm seeing is the fight started, and they got no stomach for it, and they turned on us. They just turned on us. And now I want to address something that is in the title of this video, which is the Tea Party. Because a lot of people are saying, and this is another thing, as soon as, really, I knew something was up before I even heard about what was really going down at the Capitol when I was in Oklahoma City, live streaming, because all of these people I didn't know were coming onto my live stream to say all this stuff that I didn't believe was true. And I think it was just an enormous troll campaign by the left that was to send out disinformation, discredit people, make people confused, sow discord, split us up, split the right side up is what the plan is. And so they're trying to utilize this peaceful protest. And that's what I'm going to say. It was a peaceful protest. There were no fires built. There were no buildings tore down. They busted out a window, but it was a peaceful protest until the police decided to make it a violent one. And the only violence that was committed was by Capitol Police. And that's the bottom line. You see these guys scuffling with the police. It's because these crackers are trying to keep us out of our house. That house is not Nancy Pelosi's house. It's a house of representatives, which means they represent the people. That is the people's house. How dare you act like it's your personal sanctum and get all offended that the protesters went in there and messed up the papers in Nancy Pelosi's freaking office. And so I got to stop some disinformation here, because I was aware of what they were going to do. I didn't think they were going to do it. I didn't talk about it. I thought the plan was kind of stupid, but I heard the plan. It's been being talked about for 2 or 3 weeks leading up to this day. Occupy the Capitol building, right? And have this protest. And at the head of this, though, I'm going to tell you, I believe it's the Proud Boys. And you got people saying, and maybe militia too, because I heard both groups kind of talking amongst themselves in chatter on the internet, as it were, concerning wearing black bloc. The reason why a bunch of your people are thinking it's Antifa It wasn't patriots that went in there. It was Antifa that did it. It was Antifa because pro-Trumpers would never. No, you're lucky we don't do more. Honestly, you're lucky it didn't turn into a war. It may still. But let's talk about the Boston Tea Party. Because you can say, well, the shot heard around the world at Lexington and Concord started the Revolutionary War. One could say it was the Boston Massacre that started the Revolutionary War. But if you want to know the truth, it's when they dumped the King's tea in the bay at Boston that made the authoritarians come after them. I mean, that's what happened. They stood up to the authoritarians, and the authoritarians in England came after us. And that's the only reason we're even a country. If they had treated us decent, we would have been like Canada. But, you know, Mad King George was offended by the Boston Tea Party. Okay? And I ain't talking about the Tea Party modern political movement. They named it after this event. And if, you know, sit with me through the history if you've heard it before, I'm sorry. But most people, unfortunately, do not know the history of our country at all. So a group of patriots during the Revolutionary Uprising were upset over the Stamp Act, which basically they just put a surcharge on any and all products coming out of being imported, rather, into the United States. Well, it wasn't the United States then, into the colonies from the rest of the world. And you weren't allowed to buy tea from any place but the approved place. And you had to buy that approved tea from the government. And it had to be tax stamped, kind of like cigarettes today, kind of like everything today, kind of like gasoline today. You know, my wild cousins, who you've heard me talk about, and my crazy uncles, they used to drive around with red diesel fuel in their pickup trucks, in their diesel pickups. And if you're from up north, you know that diesel's not red; it's yellow, right? But they dye diesel red when it's designated for home heating fuel because they have a much higher tax on diesel for vehicles than they do for diesel that you use for home heating fuel, and the only difference is the red dye. So the smart guys who were trying to make ends meet broke the law and burned that red home heating oil in their pickup trucks. And if you got caught with it, it was a big deal. It was a federal offense, right? Even back then, it was like $1,000 ticket or something, and strike against your record. But the reason they dyed the fuel was because they were taxing us for the fuel in our vehicles, and they weren't taxing us that as much for the home heating fuel. And so that's kind of what they were dealing with back in the Revolutionary War, was they were upset about this tax stamp that had to be pretty much put on anything, and you had to pay this tax to the government on all of these transactions. And tea was the main deal, that they could get tea much cheaper from other places, but they weren't allowed to. So when the shipment of the government tea with the government stamp came in, and at a much higher price they were supposed to pay, a group of patriots down at the local pub got together and put together a prank. Essentially, the Boston Tea Party was a peaceful protest and / a prank, okay? And why do I say prank? If it was just a protest, they would have gone on there in their clothes with their faces uncovered, and everyone could see who they were, and they would have dumped that tea in the bay. But instead, they dressed up like Indians, like Native Americans, feathers and all that. Now, it wasn't even believable. They were still wearing their regular clothes. Like, they didn't strip down and put on loincloths or go out and buy buckskins or, kill a deer and make buckskin clothes. Or they didn't try to look like, they just put paint on their face and wore bonnets on their head, and they made sounds like an Indian war party, and they dumped all of this tea into the Boston harbor. And that, more than anything else, is what infuriated King George and made him send troops over here. It's what got their attention. And so a bunch of astute people on the right, young men that weren't necessarily listening to old sage advice. They were just taking it on themselves to come up with a plan. And they decided, about 3 weeks ago, I started hearing them, and they decided to do a Boston Tea Party on the Capitol during this protest. And what you're seeing absolutely is not, it's not treason unless you're an authoritative thug. You know, unless you're a mad King George, then it's treason. If you're not, it's a protest and a prank, right? And so the Proud Boys wear their colors. And let's get this thing straight so it's not twisted. The Proud Boys is ran by a black Latino. Okay? He is not a white man. Most of the people in Proud Boys, I wouldn't say most, I would say it's a well-diverse group that reflects America. And there are people of every race who are Proud Boys. What do they have in common? What do they stand for? Well, they're MGTOW. They don't hate women. They're just not going to listen to them and get told what to do. So they're bad little boys, and they don't listen to what the women tell them to do. And they stand up for Western culture and the Western society that brought us this great culture and world that we have inherited. Okay? And so the Proud Boys are not white supremacists. They're not. They're just, maybe at best, they're chauvinists. But they got plenty of hot girls that they all date, so women must like it. I mean, they must not be, you know, nowadays John Wayne would be a criminal. And back in the day, he was a sex symbol. That's one thing I like about the women on my channel. If you look at my viewers, they're 75% male. Most of them my age or around it. You know, it runs the gamut, but that spike is right at my personal age level, at 30 to 60, right there. And they're male, but I got 25% female. So, yeah, one thing I like about the women on my channel is that they kind of dig me, because the ones that do come here like masculinity. Okay, they don't like little soy boy girls who want to sit around and drink chamomile and talk about their feelings. And this is coming from the masculine guy who cries all the time. Like, I cry on this channel. It's been a while, because I'm a lot happier than I was a few years ago, a couple years back, on a personal level. But yeah, I think that's all that the Proud Boys are. They're just it's a boys club. Come on, it's Boy Scouts all grown up, right? From the old days, Boy Scouts. But anyway, they started talking, and I also heard people from militias start to talk. And the things that makes the Proud Boys mad is that, like, their leader being arrested yesterday morning, or day before yesterday, as soon as he got off the airplane. As soon as he got off the airplane in Washington, D.C., they're just like, you're under arrest, and you're banned from ever coming to Washington, D.C. again, because I said so, because I'm a judge. I'm a judge, and I don't like you. I'm judging you. Yeah, there's a major problem with our judge system in this country, and we're going to fix it. So this plan came about amongst these folks I'm talking about. That the big problem that they don't like is that they come down there wearing their Proud Boys colors, okay? And the cops single them out. And Antifa is over here causing all kinds of hell, all kinds of havoc, but cops are laser focused on those Proud Boys. And they said it's because of our clothes. If we were dressed like Antifa, nobody would ever mess with us. If we were dressed like Antifa, ding, light bulb went off with them. Let's dress like Antifa. That'll confuse the cops. It'll confuse Antifa. They won't be able to single us out. And then somebody went, yeah, like they dressed up like Indians at the Boston Tea Party. Boom, light bulb. I heard Owen Schroyer talking about this. Is even really how I know about this. And then I heard I think I heard Papper talking about this. So there's some people that are more closely related to that younger generation of we'll just call them counter-revolutionaries. And, you know, they decided, let's dress like Antifa, and we'll act a little bit like Antifa. But, you know, when they busted the window out and they got inside and everybody retreated, all they did was take pictures of all of the beautiful stuff inside. If that was Antifa, you know, a lot of people are going around saying, it was Antifa that did this. It's a false flag. They're framing us. No, some misguided guys dressed in black bloc to confuse the police and did what they were going to do anyway. They just didn't do it dressed as patriots. And they wanted to confuse people. And like I said, it was the Boston Tea Party that was their motivation. I mean, their inspiration, rather. And but if that was Antifa, this is how I know that it's not Antifa. If that was Antifa, once they got in there, they wouldn't have took pictures with George Washington. They would have pulled all those uh, priceless, ancient, antique, antiquities and precious things that are inside the Capitol building. And if that was Antifa, they would have pulled them all down and set them on fire inside the rotunda, inside the, I guess you should call that rotunda, inside the, I forget what they call that, the Capitol dome. Okay, they would pull all those paintings down and start a fire. They wouldn't have just messed up the papers in Nancy Pelosi's office, even though she's a Democrat and supposed to be on their side and defends them. Antifa hates people. They hate all the government. They hate everybody. They don't have any favorite politician. Even Ted Wheeler in Portland, they turned on him. They never. When I saw Ted Wheeler out there with Antifa trying to get their vote, and out there with the protest with them last summer, I was laughing because I've stood in a group of Antifa and heard them plot about murdering him. That Ted Wheeler's their number. They hate Ted Wheeler. He's the head of the Portland police as far as they're concerned. So Antifa wouldn't have just messed up Nancy Pelosi's office. They would have trashed it. They would have broken everything. They wouldn't have just messed up some papers and turned over a table. They would have... Everything about the way those people that penetrated the Capitol building yesterday, everything about that situation says peaceful protest. And the only people that got hurt is when a Capitol policeman with piss poor training shot an unarmed woman in the neck because he don't know the difference between this and this. I wouldn't doubt it if it was an accidental discharge. I saw those videos and a bunch of those dumbasses with Glocks who had their Glocks. He was looking over here at his buddy, and his Glocks pointed at the door where all the protesters are, and instead of his finger being straight, it's on the trigger, and he's like this, looking around. You don't do that. You get your elbow bumped, you pull the trigger. Somebody pushes you, you pull it's accidental. You can flinch and pull the trigger. So why don't stick your finger in there until you're ready to shoot? It goes bang, 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 and that finger every time goes back, bang. Unless you're sending a volley, bang, 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 and you're resetting the trigger, right? So this guy had his finger on the trigger. Piss poor training. Ridiculous excuse for training. And so I wouldn't doubt it a bit if this guy that did it is waking up this morning going, dang, all I was doing was slacking out. I didn't mean to let that round go. Killed her dead as a doornail. Where's our outrage for our Breonna Taylor? They won't even say her name. They won't even say the name of this woman who was killed. If you know the name of this woman who was killed, put it in the comment section. But I've been scouring the news as best I can without vomiting on my television set. These people are awful. They're calling us treasonous, traitors, because we peacefully protested. The difference is we didn't go after small town America. We didn't go after downtown. We went in there and protested. How dare we protest in their sacred sanctum, in their holy church of demonic evil? That's what they've turned our Capitol building into, a refuge for Satanists and pedophiles. Con men, people taking money from Chinese communists. And when the people want to visit their house, we ain't allowed. We're not allowed to come in and have our voices heard. They're pissing on your head and telling you it's raining. They're hitting you with a hammer and telling you it's good training. The gaslighting is beyond gaslighting. It's become evil and dangerous and hurtful, and it's destroying our country. And if I could name one enemy of the United States of America right now, it would be CNN, ABC, CBS, Sinclair Broadcasting, I'll leave somebody out, MSNBC, NBC, and Fox. That's right. If you're listening to Fox, you have been tricked. You've been tricked. They got bought out. They pushed everybody out but Tucker Carlson, and he seems compromised after last night. He used to be on our side, but I think he's been compromised. He's probably just afraid. Everybody's getting afraid. I may be the last guy in America with any that will stand up and say the truth, and I don't care if you come for me. Come for me! Come on! I dare ya! It's what I was born for. I was born for this moment. The rest was just recess. The rest was just playground time before I got to the big exam. A bunch of you guys are turning total weasel on us. And I think the conspiracy theorists, the people that believe everything's a conspiracy, are going to also wilt away. They're just going to say, oh, we can't trust that movement. It's been infiltrated. Because really, they just want to sit at home and watch it on TV. They don't intend to get involved or try to make a difference. They don't care about this country. They don't love this country. They don't love our Bill of Rights. Oh, they say they do. But when it comes time to stand up for us, those guys look like Antifa. Because they're wearing black hoodies. Here's the thing. Let me assure you, those people that charged the Capitol building were not Antifa. Because I don't need black hoodie and skinny black jeans to pick an Antifa out. You can strip them all naked and I can hand pick them all out one at a time. Because Antifa don't have no muscle content. Antifa don't have no shoulders. Antifa are pencil-necked geeks without any masculinity at all. They're soy boys. They're one step behind transitioning to be a female. And there ain't a real man in the whole bunch. But those old boys that climbed up and went into the Capitol, they were all bearded. They all had militia beards. Think about that. Bunch of red-bearded, black-bearded, broad-shouldered. They couldn't fit in the hoodies. That was not Antifa. It's not Antifa. It was a protest designed by potentially, now I don't know who those guys were, whether they were militia, whether this was a loose plan, or whether it was more organized and it was Proud Boys involved. I don't know. I just know I heard the Proud Boys, Owen Schroyer, and militia talking about dressing in black bloc to confuse everybody. Because the saying was, we want to go in and occupy the Capitol building. If we go in to occupy the Capitol building in a peaceful protest, and we're dressed like Trump supporters, they'll shoot us. They'll send in the National Guard. But if we dress like Antifa, well, the Antifa can get away with, if Antifa went in there, they just let them come on in. They let them sit in the, I've even heard somebody say this, they let them sit in the speaker's chair. Let them sit in the president's chair, vice president's chair. Come on in, we'll give you a tour, Antifa. And so somebody said, let's just dress like Antifa. We'll be able to get closer to the Capitol. And that's when the Proud Boys said, you know, our colors are the biggest thing that deters us from being effective. Because they can look at us and tell we're Proud Boys. So, I'm telling you that my intel's good. Those people weren't Antifa. And don't you dare say they were. I don't agree with what they did, not on the basis that they went into the people's house. That's our house. If I want to go in there, I'm going to go in there. If you try to stop me and you want to shoot my friend in the neck, I'll probably do something to you. I'm not as nice as them boys in there, you know. But I wouldn't come there because I can't bring my boomstick. So, this was Boston Tea Party 2.0. I don't think it was very smart to dress like the enemy. You know, the Boston Tea Party guys dressed up like Indians, which I think was kind of not right anyway, because they blamed something on them poor Indians who didn't do nothing. But I think that just like those militiamen or Proud Boys who were dressed up like Antifa looked nothing like Antifa, the Boston Tea Partiers back in the day looked nothing like Indians, and they weren't really trying to. I mean, most of those guys you think are Antifa, if you look, they're wearing blue jeans and hiking boots and just a black hoodie, right? A lot of them couldn't even have they didn't even have the black pants, the black skinny jeans to make the whole thing legit. Definitely not Antifa. I promise you, I'm an expert on Antifa. I may be the industry's expert on Antifa. I'm the only guy that has a friend who's in Antifa, that had a friend that joined Antifa. You can see that video on my channel. But, yeah, this was the first step for us, you know, standing up for ourselves. And look how they've demonized us. They'll probably take my channel down. I don't really give a flip. Honestly, the longer I keep this channel, the more I start to look like I'm not doing all I could do. Because if I could do all I could do, I'd end up like David Seaman, who was the first one. Nobody ever talks about him, but this is the guy who was at the time the preeminent expert on all things child trafficking. And they took him off before Alex Jones. They took him off before white supremacists. They went after him first because I don't know how Jamie Deluxe is staying on. All I can say is that the reason Deluxe is staying on is because he's not naming politicians. He's only going up against Hollywood and the music business, as far as I can tell. He has not gone after the politicians. David Seaman went after politicians. And he was the first one to go to BitChute. And I haven't been over there just to follow him. I've been kind of busy. But yeah, it's I don't know what to tell you. We've been demonized for standing up for ourselves while Antifa can destroy the world, and they're a mostly peaceful protest. And our little kerfuffle, our little mix up here, our little dust out, and oh, we're treasonous evil people trying to overthrow the government. How dare we? God save our republic. Wolverine!